Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. In this video, we are going to be looking at all of the new battle plans for the new General's Handbook. And I'm going to be doing something we haven't really done before when we've looked at these new General's Handbooks. And we are going to be really breaking them down into like the most crunchy, rules reviewy kind of thing that I've done. We're going to also do this for battle tactics and for anything else you can think of. If you leave them in the comments below, I'll read them all and I'll try and bring you all of the good information. What we're going to be doing today is we are going to be looking at all of the 12 new missions that you can play. We are going to be talking about whether or not they're easy to play, they're hard to play, whether or not you should play them in casual pickup games, whether or not these should be missions that you do or don't use. If you're a tournament organizer that plays an event, there's actually so many different ways you can kind of break this out. You could actually do 2 or 3 different tier lists. But we've just kind of decided to go for this. And hopefully through this video, you'll get some ideas on missions you want to pick up and play. And then I'll leave you like a timestamp maybe at the end where I just say, look, these are the missions that I think you should play if you're just like a casual player and you want to play something that's fun. And then maybe for TOs and stuff. So this is going to be just a long, thought out video with lots of information inside of it. I'll also be using a couple of different references as well. So if you go onto ageofindex.com/plans, you can click one of the new battle plans like you can see here. And then this website allows you to measure the different ranges. So if you never have seen a battle plan for Age of Sigmar, what you have, this is No Man's Land, the gray. Blue is one of the players' deployment zones. Red is another player's deployment zone. The circles are your objectives. And in Age of Sigmar 4 in this season with the new General's Handbook, they're color-coded. So sometimes they're in matching pairs depending on what the special rules are for the mission. So one of the rules might be that in order to score points, you need to control both reds or both blues, as an example. So they're color-coded as well for that reason. And then these other symbols are pieces of terrain and types of terrain. And that's also going to impact how the mission plays, because Games Workshop has determined what the terrain layouts are for these. Now, we will be also having some pretty, I might not include the conversation actually about terrain today. Quick point I'll make about terrain is Games Workshop makes these terrain maps without anyone really necessarily having access to that volume or type of terrain. For instance, one of them has 8 different forests. Now, this could just be area terrain, but do people even have 8 types of area terrain? I would have liked to seen them cycle through having like 2 buildings, 2 forests, maybe 2 hills, 2 places of power on each mission. I know that's a little bit boring, but that would have been much more conscious of what people's collections are or what tournament organizers' collections are. Just your games at home or at the local club, maybe it's not that big a deal. But if you'd just like to go to an event, even for 12 people, that's 12 boards of terrain that TOs might have to add more terrain to, buy more stuff. It's quite a lot, but that's the last thing I'll say about access to terrain today, because it's a long conversation and it doesn't really need to be discussed. So as I've said, we're going to be breaking down these battle plans into, I'll be discussing each one, I'll explain what's in each one, and then we'll talk about the positives, the negatives, and what we think about them. And I'll be doing this live. It's going to be a couple of hours. It'll be an edited down video, so hopefully you enjoy it. So the first battle plan we're going to look at is called Passing Seasons. If we take a look, you can see that there are 4 objectives on the board. We'll take a moment to look at this in a kind of more clearer context. There are 4 objectives, 2 green, and they're in No Man's Land. So they're in neither player's deployment. Then obviously you've got deployment at the top left and deployment in the bottom right. And then they've got red. Now in rounds 1, 3, and 5, the only objectives that you score or can score points from are the green ones. And you score 5 points for each one. In rounds 2 and 4, you can only score red. So obviously from turn 1, you can go score 10 points immediately. It's going to be really hard on turn 1 for you to go and score both reds. In turn 2, it's going to be really hard to score both reds. You know, you run forward and you defeat their whole army and then you score their red. Well, then you probably won the game anyway. So turn 1, 10 points available from the greens. Turn 2, 10 points available from the red, and then you continue on. We take a look at the different terrain. You can see that we have both some obscuring terrain at the back. So these little green symbols, you'll see these written on the battle plan cards as forests. So that's obscuring terrain. The actual terrain types say that obscuring terrain can be wildwoods, fortress walls, stuff like that. These give you cover, which is minus to shoot through. Obscuring, which if you're within an inch of it, every model in a unit is within an inch of it and it doesn't fly or is not a monster. then you won't be able to see it for the purpose of spells and shooting. It's also unstable, which means you can't stand on it unless it's smaller than an inch. So unless you've got like just literally a flat piece of, like the mouse mat material that people use, or something similar than that, like something simple and similar. Sorry, then that's going to be that's probably going to be something that effectively you can't stand on. So if we go back and look at it, these two home objectives are kind of covered by those pieces of terrain. They could just be forests, and because none of the other pieces of terrain are forests, probably your local TOs or you at home are going to just use a forest, so probably can't stand on it. That'll be important. The other 4 pieces you can see across the in this kind of L shape are places of power. These places of power, as you can see, are close enough to this up here that you're going to be able to deploy next to a place of power with a hero and make the red objectives obscuring. You also, in later turns, will also be able to make the green ones obscuring. And again, with the obscuring, as long as all of your models in the unit and they don't fly and aren't a monster can stand inside that circle, you're not going to be able to be seen for the purpose of shooting. So a good strategy maybe in the past would have been have a shooting unit that's in your deployment zone and kind of shoot their units that are trying to get objectives, or whittle them down, or help deal some damage to them. But obviously that won't be the case anymore, because most likely you'll just make something obscuring. So that's that. Let's talk about the underdog bonuses very quickly, and then we can kind of talk about and theorize a little bit of strategy. The underdog bonuses are that from rounds 2 and 4, you can use the burgeoning rejuvenation, and rounds 3 and 5, you can use powerful resurgence. You become the underdog if you are less points than your opponent, or if they did a double turn. So if they went last in the turn, then first in the next turn. Now, becoming the underdog in this, or we'll talk about that after. Let's talk about the bonuses. So rounds 2 and 4, burgeoning rejuvenation. Pick one of the following: heal D3 for every friendly unit contesting Oakenbrow, which are the red ones. So that'll be your home objectives. And then for the rest of the battle round, while friendly unit is contesting Gnarlroot objectives, if it has a ward save, you add 1 to the rolls for the rest of the turn. So this is rounds 2 and 4. Now, the green objectives from round 2, giving +1 to ward save, is obviously really good for several different armies. Getting +1 to your ward save, a unit of Blight Kings, for example, being an underdog and contesting green, which if you go back and look on the map, going and contesting green means they're going to get +1 to all ward save to all their health. And that's a really clever strategy and idea, but that is really army dependent. Most battle plans and games are really army dependent, but I'm trying to make something that's a little bit more thoughtful sometimes than maybe stuff that's out there on the internet, and that's a little bit more of a deep dive, but it's going to be a bit crunchy and a bit techy, and there's going to still be a lot of question marks around it. So hopefully it's useful. Okay. So sure, holding green is going to be very useful if you're the underdog, and you can, and this is a strategy we should start talking about, manipulate becoming the underdog. It'll be one of the strategies we talk about in all of the battle plans. Can I manipulate becoming the underdog? Well, I can't score my red objective on the first turn. I have to go and score green. Do I want to go and score green? It's a great question. Am I going first? Am I a low drop army? Do I want to run on green? Then my opponent charges me on green, takes those objectives off me, maybe doubles and starts threatening red. It's a great strategy. Not really sure. But if I move on to green or just near green, haven't scored them, but I can become the underdog and then maybe start to contest on green, maybe turn 2. Maybe that's a strategy, which I think is an interesting one. But again, only really works if the ward save is a bonus to you. You could have a low drop army and make your opponent go first, make them have to move on to green to score points. The only way you win this game is scoring points. Then you could rush green and you could smash them. And then you could start moving on to their objectives. You could write into your army list some small units like Canary for Daughters of Cain, or Skinks for Seraphon. And their job is just literally to grab green, it being obscuring, be obscured, make their opponent run across the board to come and get you. That's a good strategy. And then once they've charged there, you can countercharge and get onto those objectives. The reason I talk about charging a lot is probably the only way you're clearing those objectives or moving onto those spaces is if you go and fight, because it will probably be obscuring and it's going to be tough to deal with. You won't be able to necessarily deal with it at range. Another really solid strategy, which thank you to, I think it was Ustadin in the chat maybe, is a pinning strategy. And I think Terry was talking about this as well. You can see at the top and at the left-hand side, you can see if we just focus on the kind of top left objective as our aggressive objective, or we're deploying as blue at the moment. What we could do is we could effectively pin our opponent. There are two pieces of terrain, both of which you're not going to be able to move through. And you're also, sorry, not going to be able to stand on, is what I meant to say. So what you can do is you can charge into that kind of central gap and pin your opponent, all while putting some smaller units to exist on green. They exist on green, your opponent can't get out of green, they'll score their red, but they won't score your red because you'll have left a small unit there. And then if they can't get out of there on turn 3, then you'll score an additional 2. That means that you'll have scored 10 in the first turn, 5 in the second turn, 10 in the second turn for 25 points. They'll have scored 5, and that's it. And that's that's probably also game. It also means they won't have done any tactics, etc., etc. But there's only certain armies that can also do that as a strategy as well. So there's lots of opportunity here for, I think, turn order manipulation, deciding who goes first. So being a low drop and deciding who goes first is probably advantageous here, depending on your army build up for what you're able to do. I also feel like this isn't necessarily a particularly good mission for new players, because if I'm new, I go and run on green and then my opponent just smashes all my toys. I'm like, oh, what could I have done? Because what can you do? Your job is to go and hold objectives and do battle tactics. It probably will feel like your army has been split up and made to fight. And then you won't know what to do. Then you run him back to red, or your opponent puts a deep striking unit in and takes red off you. And now you feel like, I feel like this is not necessarily the greatest game, a mission for new players. So because of that, though, I think this is going in medium, because I don't think it's necessarily obnoxious in like what it overly does to the like whole game. I think there's some strategies and there's a good opportunity to learn. It's a good opportunity to like really understand like a bunch of different mechanics or strategies, whether that be trading for objectives, small to big units, whether or not that's pinning or using like alpha pin style strategies, or being like a little bit more evasive and trying to like get back objectives and be really clever that way. Last point I'd like to point out, which I think is going to be a consistent through line here as well, is your faction terrain is going to make this more of a problem in some cases, not less. You have pretty limited deployment zones. It's quite a small area. And while you can be like over at this far left-hand side, for example, and threaten this objective, you're going to need 10 or 12 inches of movement, and some units are going to be really slow. You know, Age of Sigmar could be quite a fast game, though. So you're going to need a small amount of, like, a pretty medium to fast unit to be able to grab these objectives early without, like, rolling a dice to guarantee, or using a command ability to guarantee a 6, making sure that you get those objectives. But deploying is also going to be tough, and also if you need to put your faction terrain, now it's really only probably going to go in this left-hand side or this right-hand side. And it's either going to benefit you in that you're going to be able to use its abilities, or your opponent is going to be able to engage with it to use it to bunny hop onto the red objective if that's their plan. Yes, this is I think, more complicated than it initially seems. And the bonuses you get are kind of like, one bonus I didn't talk about, I apologize. I didn't talk about the bonuses at all. If you are the underdog, then you get a ward save on the objectives, which I did talk about. The other one on rounds 3 and 5, you get +1 to wound for combat rolls if you're fighting on red. So if you do try and rush your opponent's red objective, then rounds 3 and 5, which is probably too late, then you're going to get +1 to wound, which I think is a bit nominal. So that's where it's going to sit in medium. Hope this is good. Let's go and look at the next mission. The next mission on the list is the Noxious Nexus. Probably should have called it the Texas. No, it doesn't matter. The Toxic Nexus. Because this one I don't think is great. Okay, so this is our second mission, and there are 3 objectives on the board. The first, you can't score any of the objectives on the first turn, and you can score the Oakenbrow one, the red one, and that scores you 5 points. The green one is going to be 3 points, and the blue one is 2 points. However, on the final turn, you get 10 bonus points for blue, which means in the final turn, blue is worth 12. I think, now again, this is early, but I think it's fair to say that I think you're only going to score about, the average score, or maybe even a good score on your battle tactics is going to be about 20 points of the 30 that's available from doing battle tactics. So if we go and look at the actual objectives here, this is a real tough one. If we go look at the AG Index version to give us some more insight, you're going to start 18 inches away from your opponent, right in front of the red objective, which scores you lots of points. It scores you 5. Okay. So what's going to happen is you're both going to go and fight in the middle about it. Okay. Or you're going to go fight in the middle about green. Cool. Then blue is only worth 2. Over the course of the game, it's worth 10 points until the final turn, which is going to be an additional 10, so it'll be worth 20. So if you did have a deep striking unit, you could just pop onto blue. That's fine. You'll score 2, score 2, score 2. Like that won't hurt, but scoring red is going to get you 3 turns basically of scoring blue. So, and scoring red and green, like having pure dominance on the right-hand side of the board, is going to score you 8 a turn, which is very good. Ultimately, and now also your deployment zones are very thin. So if you would like your opponent who's got a very smashy army to not be able to charge and hurt your important stuff turn 1, then you're going to need some screens and you're going to need to deploy even deeper. So if you deploy, I don't know, even like this far back from the deployment, you're now 12 inches away from red, which your opponent is going to have flooded on the first turn. Like gone and grabbed. Or maybe they'll say, do you want to come and get the objectives? You're like, no, maybe you'll both hold off on the first turn and neither of you will move, with everything being obscuring, and just fight from turn 2. Some armies, like DPT armies, Gargants, so damage per turn, we call them a DPT army because it requires a certain amount of damage per turn in order to defeat the units. Blight Kings is another good example. A lot of bodies on the board, a lot of health, a lot of armor save. Can they just put 30 Blight Kings on 2 objectives and say to you, can you kill it? And it's not, can you kill it over 5 turns? It's, can you kill it in enough time that they score all of the primary points? If they just hold red and green for 3 turns, they're going to have scored 24 points. If you score blue, you've held 6. Now, sure, if you hold blue at the end, then you're going to get a little bonus 10 points, and that might swing the course of the game. But it also means that they're like potentially stopping you doing tactics. This one I really dislike for new players, especially. So if you're a new player who's watching this, I wouldn't play this at all because this is just you and your opponent just like actually straight lining into each other. I don't think that's going to help develop any tactical acumen. I don't think I would put this in a mission pack myself, because I think like a new player would be like, oh, because a good player or a person who's got a lot of practice, who's done a lot of prep, is going to be like, cool, I'm just going to go and smash your stuff, or I'm just going to make it so you can't score. Pin is also going to work really well here as well. And at that point, what's the point? So I don't like this one at all. So I'm putting this in don't play for me. I wouldn't probably ever put this in my packs. Don't like it in any way. So that's my hot take there. Also, I didn't even actually bother to go through what you get for being the underdog because I wanted to make sure I gave you the reasons why it's in this sucks ass. But this is, you pick blue. No, not pick blue. You pick an objective, and then on a D3, on a 2+, you'll take that many mortals for each unit holding it, which kind of sounds fun. So like, I am losing. I'm going to do a bunch of splash mortals to a ton of your units. But again, I don't think if you can't clear the objective of their units anyway, an extra maybe 2 or 3 mortals isn't going to be enough to make that happen. And it's only once per battle round. If they're holding blue, it's going to be more. So I really don't think that's going to be enough to help. Our next mission is called the Paths of the Fae. Now, this is a great mission with one massive, massive flaw. So there are 5 objectives. Let's talk about the fact that they're spread out. That's really healthy, in my opinion. It means, unlike the last mission we just talked about, you can't necessarily get alpha pinned. You can't get alpha... I mean, you can always get alpha struck in the right situation. You've got quite a condensed board state. So you are going to have everything in a small area. There's terrain taking up your parts of the area as well. So your faction terrain probably is really only going to fit in that, like this blue section. If we're playing as blue, around this kind of area. So that's going to mean that you're even more condensed as well. So, and also because you can't zone out necessarily the board edges overly much, or use the board edge to like block a side for teleporting, it means teleporting units can like teleport land and start, getting into your juicy innards, which you don't want as well. Now, the 5 objectives, you've got 2 pairs of green, 2 pairs of red, and blue in the middle. You score 5 points if you just hold 1 objective, which is cool. So go hold green on the left-hand side, let's say. Then, you go get another one, so you can go grab the right on the other side, and you're going to score 3 more points. So 5 for holding 1, 3 for holding 2, and then only 2 points for holding more. So do I want to go and fight over blue? Probably. But for teleporting armies and armies that have got a lot of mobility, there's the option to grab your side objectives, teleport a unit in the back, early doors, and score an additional 2 points. This means your opponent is maybe going to have to then go and chase your units on who goes first. If you go first, You've got the opportunity to grab a load, score high, which is really nice. There's no downside to doing that. Your opponent then has to get into a lot of places. And if you do go first and you score 3 or maybe even jump onto 4, your opponent has to clear now 3 of them at least to be able to make it so that they can score more as well and just equal you on the points. Otherwise, they're slowly losing. There's no objectives in your deployment as well, so you're not going to be able to just camp. So this is, again, another mission that's not very good for castle armies. There is a lot of obscuring terrain in these 4 pieces in the middle. These 2 center pieces are not obscuring, but we do have 2 places of power here and here, so you could probably make both of the flank objectives obscuring as well over 2 battle rounds. You and your opponent, so you could put one on, one that's in your home territory, so that magic missiles and and shooting attacks aren't going to be able to like really hurt this part of the board. That's a real positive for you as well. So there's a lot of strategy here. There's a lot of movement. Not good for castle armies. There's a lot of opportunity to avoid like missile shots and do big combats and be in places you weren't expecting, teleports, using your faction terrain to either bring models back from the dead or gnaw holes to teleport, or a bunch of different options to really kind of like make this as an exciting game of kind of chess and trading and moving stuff around. And I really like this, genuinely. However, there is a twist. The twist is called the Spirit Paths Open, which is once per round, start of the battle round. If you're the underdog, you pick 2 objectives to be the targets. All units within 6 inches of any target objectives, so that's 2. It's just any 2 objectives as well, must be removed from the battlefield by their commander. Those units are vanished. Then, starting with you, players take it in turns to set up each friendly vanished unit wholly within 6 inches of either target objective, more than 3 inches from all enemy units. Each model must be set up as close to that objective as possible. Those units cannot use move abilities in the first movement phase of the battle round, which is pretty huge if you think about the priority roll. I'm the underdog. I make my opponent go first. I pick up the units. I put them down. They now can't move. That's huge. Okay? Those units cannot use move abilities in the first movement phase of the battle round. It's impossible for that unit to be set up in this way, set up in reserve as a lost unit. And then you've got in your movement phase, stumbling forth. If that unit is lost, like it wasn't able to be set up from the objective, set up that unit on the battlefield more than 9 inches from all enemy units and wholly within 7 inches of the battlefield. So initially that last part will cover. That's pretty good because that means you're going to be near 4 different objectives to be able to go and grab. That's fine. Talk about several things here. Number 1, just the amount of time that is going to take to add on to a game is going to make games much longer, much longer. Also, army dependent. You might be like, I'm cool with playing 200 clan rats. I play 200 clan rats at an event. I do it every weekend. I never take more time than I should. We use a clock. Things are safe. Life is good. Like, cool. Okay, now what if I make you pick up those 200 clan rats every single battle round and put them in different places? That's going to add time onto your turns. Number 2, you're like, okay, cool. Why don't you just avoid it happening? Well, claiming objectives is the point of the game. If you're claiming objectives and holding objectives, then you're winning the game, which means your opponent's the underdog, which means your opponent is going to pick up more models of yours and put them in different places. So that's also a negative as well. Also, if you can just take a look at the map at the top here, you can see that 6 inches from the objective is the central 40 millimeter marker, and then the control zone is the other part. That is a massive area, and it's just within. So if I just have one unit of one model of a clan rat unit just here, you're going to lift up that whole unit and put it somewhere else. Lastly, the other part to talk about is the kind of like non-player experience of how the game is. I don't think anyone would be super keen in the fact that every battle round I make you pick up your models and move them somewhere else. That's annoying. Like, it takes time. It adds time onto the game. Now, I think definitely as like a, hey, do you want to have a crazy game tonight and let's play this game? This is absolutely one of those casual things, especially if you've got a long day. You know, like it's a summer day, you got a barbecue on, you're just there for the day to catch up with your friend. This is maybe the one. Other than that, I'm like, and I feel really bad that for this early in, we're getting 2 don't plays. These are probably the only 2 don't plays in the deck. And I'm not saying don't play it ever. Unlike Noxious Nexus. I'm saying probably don't play it unless you are conscious of what it is, what it can happen, how long it's going to take, what the experience of it's going to be like. And also, if you took out just the underdog, if you're new, and just want to play a cool mission, I would immediately take out the underdog mechanic and I would put this into good immediately. This would be straight at the top. I think it's got really nice spreading. It's got good objectives. It's got a bunch of stuff you can do. The scoring is really clever as well with 5-3-2, with hold 1, hold 2, hold more. It's old school scoring, which is really positive. So like, I really like it. So if it wasn't for the underdog mechanic, this would be green. Our next mission is Life Roots. Life Roots, for scoring, you score 5 victory points if you control at least one objective, and you score 3 victory points if you control both objectives, because there are only 2 objectives. And you score 2 victory points if you have any more Life Root points than your opponent. Okay, let's talk about how you gain Life Root points. Each player scores 1 Life Root point at the end of each of their turns for each feature they control. This is cumulative, and it doesn't reset at any point. Now, that starts to create like a small problem for how we're going to play it. But let's go look at the actual board. Oh, sorry, that's a drawing about obscuring. Go look at the actual board here, thanks to Tobias. So there are 2 objectives. You can see red and there's green. And as you can see, this has got 8 forests for some reason. No, 6 forests, actually, and then 2 places of power. So this is a bunch of obscuring terrain going all the way across the middle. Now, on your initial thoughts, if I want to go grab their objective, okay, then that's going to be a full send my entire army at their entire army with trying to protect my objective to some degree. Okay, so then if I would like to do something slightly different and instead I'd like to try and accumulate life points, then that's a different strategy and we should think about it. What we definitely can't do, because there's so much obscuring terrain on the board, is sit on our home objective and be shooting or magic missiling or croaking or anything like that, any of their pieces, unless they're monsters or flying units, off the board. So when we do decide that we're going to have a fight, it will just be a giant fight, probably around the forest, which is really thematic because we're in the realm of Garan. So it's actually pretty themey. But it does mean combat armies. If your combat army is better than my combat army, probably you're going to be in a good position. Right, so let's take a look at the strategy for scoring life points. If I go first, I'm going to be able to grab the forest that you can kind of see just like here, around the middle, and maybe I can grab the other one as well. Then I'm going to grab maybe the 2 at the top if I'm again playing as blue, and then now I've grabbed 4. I've grabbed the place of power in the bottom. That's 5. I've got 5 points. Now it's your job in your first turn to then grab your 3 and then try to take these 2 back in the center. So that immediately turns into a fight in the middle as well. Now there's obviously some armies that are going to be able to manipulate how you play this battle plan. First off, teleporting units. Teleporting units to go grab even more of these objectives. Maybe if I go first, or if I go second, a unit of prosecutors can go fight some small units on these little board edges as an example. That's a good use case for teleporting stuff, which is even better in this case for grabbing and making points. But because it's cumulative, loads of things can happen. Number 1, if I go first and score a bunch of points, then you go second and don't score as many points. It means you get a double turn. You can't score a battle tactic that turn, but it means you might be able to then ramp up more points. And then it's on us going second again to grab more points. But if you don't decide to do a double, then I can't really see how going second, you're going to be able to re-get as many points or get more points than the person who goes first. Now, there's also ways to manipulate this battle plan as well. So if you're playing as Nurgle with Horticulate Slimmix, if you're playing Soulblight Gravelords or Nighthorn or Skaven or Sylvaneth, and there might be more as well, but I don't think there is, then your faction terrain is also going to count towards those points. So and the reason I mentioned those 5 is they can put quite a lot of additional, more than 1 faction terrain piece on the board. So they will be able to manipulate that, have that in their deployment zone, and be like, cool, now I'm scoring more points than you just because I turned up with an army. And I think an army having a natural advantage in being able to score more points just because it has slightly different terrain features probably feels pretty negative. And I think people wouldn't really enjoy that. Also, obviously, I mean, you can kill the terrain features. That's a thing as well, for sure. So this one is very interesting. It's hard not to see how you would not play full send. Even if you're trying to not play full send and beat the other person's army to get their objective or sneak a unit on there, you're still trying to fight over the 2 forests in the middle, which means your 2 armies are right next to each other, which means it's full send. So that feels a little bit challenging. Now, there is also an underdog mechanic for this, where once per battle, at the start of the battle round, life begets life. You pick a friendly unit that has all of its models within 1 inch of a terrain feature with a target. You return 1 slain model to the target unit. And this is pretty cool for like large multi-wound models, the chance to get this back. But overall, for me, this isn't going in don't play because I'm not doing that anymore. I don't want to be that guy. But the life roots for me is just going into bad at the moment. And maybe as we go through this, maybe this will move up into medium. I do remember from doing the GHB review that I like all of the later battle plans. These seem more reasonable. This one also doesn't really teach you much. It's just go forward. And also it's bad for TOs because you need a load of forests. Although you don't have to use forests, you could use something else. But so for me, it's going in bad for now, but maybe we'll adjust that in the future. The next mission is called Roiling Roots. Roiling Roots. And there are 6 objectives on this. You get 5 victory points if you hold 1, and there's 1 in your territory, so that's nice. And there's 3 victory points if you control any pairs of objectives. And then 2 victory points if you control more objectives than your opponent. And there's also, if you're the underdog, you've got the Tangling Tendrils ability, which is once per battle round, the start of the battle round, for the rest of the battle round, units, friendly and enemy, have strike last while they're contesting a target objective. Okay, let's talk about this, shall we? Let's go look at the better map. So you start with 1 in your territory, which is nice, super easy. Now, if you want to go out of your territory and claim 2 objectives, like the greens, we're playing as blue at the bottom, we want to go claim green and red, that's cool, but it doesn't get us a pair. So that means on turn 1, if we go first, we will score more than our opponent because they'll only be deployed on 1, therefore holding 1, but they won't be holding, so we'll be holding 3, so we'll be scoring more, but we won't be holding a pair. So what you probably want to do is battle for green. Immediately rush onto green. Now, the top green, if we're playing as blue, or the bottom green if we're playing as red, are really close to our opponent. So a lot of opportunities for counter charges. And blessedly, because of the terrain and the fact that there are no places of power, probably available to be shooting at those units as well, because they won't be obscured, which is going to be something pretty unique on most of these missions. So with the shooting units or the missile units or magic units actually being able to engage in the game, then from blue at the bottom over to green, you're actually going to be able to project some like range damage, which is kind of interesting, or even do spell debuffs and stuff. So actually grabbing greens is more difficult. This benefits an army that wants to do teleports because you could potentially teleport onto their reds, making them have to move away. Again, if we're playing as blue and they're playing as red, move from the top of the board and move over onto those objectives. And those red objectives can be made obscuring. So you can make it so that missile weapons and other stuff aren't going to be as effective into them. So that's a nice strategy as well. Do I want to go first or not go first? Again, that's so army dependent. You can never really answer that question in most cases. But grabbing green is good. Letting your opponent grab green off you is bad. Also, the terrain layout makes this a pretty positive step, and the actual underdog mechanic is not aggressive. I really like also that it's 3 victory points for a pair. It's pretty upsetting that actually this isn't in most of the other missions, or at least in some of the other missions. And I guess that could make this a little bit more confusing for people because they're like, oh, I needed to have both. It's like, yeah, you need to have both. So people might misread that. But I think this is good. It makes you play either wide or play central. It's got a terrain that's useful but not too impactful. And there's a lot of opportunities to play. So for me, I'm pretty positive on Roiling Roots, and I'm going to stick it right at the top. I think I couldn't see how this wouldn't be something I would play with a new player. It's fun, the paired mechanic as well. I think that's cool. So yeah, this is a good one for me. Our next mission is called Bountiful Equinox. You score 5 victory points if you control 1 objective, 3 victory points if you control 2 or more objectives, and you score 2 victory points if you control 1 Oakenbrow, 1 Gnarl Root, or 1 Heartwood. And then once per battle round, at the start of the battle round, if you're the underdog, you can pick an objective, heal 3 to each unit, friendly and enemy, contesting a target objective. So let's go and look at the actual board. There's the actual map. Here's the one from Age of Index. So in order to, you just need to hold 1, 5 points. I hold a second one, so I can just hold red and green when I start the game, and I'm going to get an additional 3 points for 8 points that turn. Easy peasy. If I go first, I immediately run onto onto blue, and I'm going to score the extra 2 points for having held a green, a blue, and a red all at the same time. My opponent then obviously is going to charge everything onto blue to beat me up. Then it becomes a game. An interesting version of how to play this maybe is to put like a small light unit. Let's pretend we're player blue at the bottom. Put a small light unit on red. Then players green, jump with some strong units over onto blue, and then go and hit their red. But it really depends on how well defended their red and their greens are, how we deploy, and what the strategy is there as well. It's worth pointing out that these places of power that you can see, while they're in our territory, they're not in our deployment zone. And we will be able to put a hero, because you get a hero within 3 inches near the place of power, and you will be able to use the benefit of the place of power. So you are going to be able to make the green objective or the red objective in your territories obscuring. And also, there are 4 other pieces of obscuring terrain on this board. So everything apart from the centerpiece can be obscuring as well. Now, one of the interesting things about this, number one, I like this mission. I think this mission's really, really positive because it's got a bunch of ways to play it. You could just rush everything in the middle and be like, I'm going to hold it. Your opponent isn't going to be able to hold it. Or can you fight me? Again, this is really going to benefit those armies that can just be like, I've got a massive OC score and I'm just going to go stand in the middle. Throw 2 Gargants in the middle. What can they do? It's a great question. They're going to have to rush everything at you. Okay, cool. But it's only worth an extra 2 points. So is it really worth giving up, losing all your models to? That's a good point. I also like the idea that you can just do a flank and run the game that way. That's quite interesting, especially if your opponent has the same idea. That's fun. I think that's cool. What I really like about this mission as well, though, is probably when we do a video about battle tactics, it's fair to say that the 6, I wish there were more battle tactics, that's number 1. But number 2, it's fair to say that several of those battle tactics, or there's 6, so a couple of those battle tactics are probably going to be the more popular ones than the other ones. One of the ones I think will end up being fairly popular is Scouting Force. This is where you go and just stand near some terrain, which obviously, if we talk about the last battle plan, is the point of the last battle plan. So you go and grab some objectives. Now, the last part of this, so for additional 5 points, it's really hard. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if a friendly scout unit that was not set up this turn is contesting a terrain feature that you control that is wholly within enemy territory and that is more than 6 inches from friendly territory. So on this mission, this means the only piece that we can score is that forest. If we're playing as blue, is that forest at the top. Now, this already provides us with some really interesting tactics. I turn up to the table, I'm playing my friend. Like, I've got a friend in Nashville called Jacob, love him to pieces. Let's say he's playing and he's chosen Scout and Force. What I would do is I would not put my terrain feature, if it's not very important, like an Oceanic Bone Reaper Nexus as an example, I just wouldn't put that on the board. And instead, that means they've only got that forest. And I know that if they want to score that battle tactic, they need to get that forest. And that's pretty cool. So there's some little strategies around that, which makes me more interested in this as a battle plan, because it might also curve the power or the pick rate of what might end up being one of the more popular battle tactics, which is good because you don't want them to all be able to have that. So yeah, I like this. I like that you have different ways to try to manage this. I think that the first turn gives you an advantage and a weakness. There's lots of opportunities to be like, I'm not just going to get another objective off you. I need to get blue to score the additional 2 points. So for me, Bountiful Equinox is going straight into good. It doesn't have a negative twist that makes this really bad, and it's starting to balance out now. We're really starting to get and we've got quite a few that I know are good as well. So it's already starting to balance out, which is really positive. So good. I'm really happy about that mission. However, if you are an army that can generate faction terrain, sorry, I should have pointed this out. This is cool, like Sylvaneth, Horticulus Slimmux, Skaven. You can put faction terrain in their section of the board for scouting. That's cool. That's a nice little strategy that you can go for as well. But yeah, still really fun. I know that I marked down one of the battle plans for being able to gimmick having faction terrain. But in my opinion, that this isn't quite the same. This is, you are taking the faction trade, you're also taking the battle tactic, you're then building a strategy into how you're going to play. So I think that's fine, versus just getting 3 points for having something more than your opponent. Our next mission is called Cyclic Shifts. You score 5 points if you control one objective, 3 points if you control 2 or more, and 2 points if you control more objectives than your opponent. It does have a twist. If you're the underdog, once per battle round at the start of the battle round, you can use Unpredictable Evolution, where the target objectives are no longer controlled by either player. If they were, they cannot be controlled this battle round. And this is picking a pair of objectives. So if we go and look at the mission, you can see a bunch of area terrain or obstacle terrain. We've got some small little pieces and a ton of places of power. Now, if we go to the simpler map, so we can kind of get our minds in the game. So blue and purple, I'm kind of covering purple up here, which is kind of makes me a terrible streamer. Blue and purple, you can see those there. That means that you're never going to be able to turn those off using the underdog mechanic. So I deploy, you deploy, fine. Also, green is also in my deployment as well. So I'm already going to get 5 points for holding one objective, blue and purple, and then I'm going to score another 3 for holding that green objective. So immediately, like, I'm pretty much getting 8 points a turn, and I don't have to move anywhere, which is really good. If I want to start getting more points than my opponent, ignoring battle tactics, then immediately, like, I'm thinking about jumping on red, and then that's how I'm going to score 3. If I go first, that's how I'll score more than my opponent, but then they can move on red, and now it's equal. Oh, no, actually, if they move on red turn 2, if they move on red at the bottom of turn 1, so I went first, they go second, then they're going to be down points, they'll be the underdog, and they can immediately turn off one of those pairs. So you can either turn off green or turn off red. That makes it quite interesting. Going first, a little bit weaker. Now, if you get given the first turn, you could just not jump on red, just score 2. They can jump on red, and then you can decide to like turn off red as an example. And that starts to build up a strategy that's quite interesting. Another thing I'd like to talk about is that this might be a really good battle plan for stopping armies that love to just run and fight early on. We talked in the very first missions about alpha pinning, which is when you pin your opponent in so they can't move out of their deployment zone, they can't jump onto objectives. The deployment zone is really wide. It's as wide as it can be. So you've got a lot of room here for making sure that you don't necessarily get pinned in, which is nice. There's a lot of space for putting your own terrain down, which is good as well. But some armies might just think, I'm just going to jump on green, I'm just going to run forward, and I'm going to hit you if you're deployed on green. Well, if that ends up being the case and you become the underdog, you can then just turn off green, and now they're kind of centrally located, and maybe you can move towards the edges. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, because I think a player that uses strategies like that will see that as a problem and not necessarily go along with that. Teleporting units also really good as well, because you're always going to have to try and defend your purple and your green for most of the game. Your purple and your blue for most of the game. So teleporting armies also doing really well. Quite a few places of power, so heroes battling it in the middle will gain access to being able to make stuff obscuring or get the other bonuses from the places of power, which is good. So it's quite an interesting map. I don't know if it's necessarily the best mission. The underdog mechanic is very tactical. If I was new, it might be a bit of a headache and a bit of a feels badsy if my opponent just turned off some objectives and I didn't really realize what was going to happen. So that can be, you can get caught out by that quite simply. I think also maybe there's room for manipulation with it as well. And also armies that can teleport and be in lots of different places all at the same time are going to really benefit from it. And some armies don't have that capacity. They're quite slow. There are a lot of armies in this game that are quite slow and they don't play those games as well. I'm not going to say this is bad, but I'm going to say that I feel this is medium. It's just a fine mission that's okay with some strengths and weaknesses, and would definitely make it into a mission pack for me to play at an event so that people could enjoy, but I don't think it necessarily does everything I want it to do. Our next mission is called Life Cycle, and this is really thematic because, like the life cycle of Age of Sigmar, it really brings back the full send summer that we all enjoy about throwing 4 Mega Gargants in the middle of the board. Okay, so what happens with this mission? It's a little complex, which is not going to benefit it in any way. There are 4 objectives. Okay, and if we go take a look at the, not this one, that looks terrible. This version, you can see there's a red and a green, and there is a purple and a blue. And then our deployment zone is nothing. There's a kind of no man's land in the middle. We've got some obscuring terrain and a lot of places of power again, so we can make a lot of these pieces of board also be obscuring. Okay, super simple, really easy. Now, the way you score on this is you score 4 victory points if you control 1 objective. Nice and easy. You score 2 victory points if you control more objectives than your opponent. And this is quite nice because this is a win more condition, which is good for competitive gamers, but bad for everybody else. And then turn 1, you score 4 victory points if you control Oakenbrow and Naru, so the red and the green objectives. And if your eyes are already going cross-eyed, that's fine. And that's why it's going to get a bad review. And then you score 2 victory points if you control the primary, and you get 1 victory point if you control the secondary objective that you control, or any of the secondary objectives for each secondary. Why is there a primary and a secondary? Okay, at the start of turn 2, you are going, whoever's the underdog, and if no one's the underdog, you roll a dice. You'll pick either the green or the red objectives. They become the primary, and then following this life cycle map that you have here, at the beginning of each battle round, the primary will move one along, and then the two either side of it become the secondary. So if we take a look at the map and we kind of look what happens, on turn 1, if I score red and green, I'm going to get an additional 4 victory points. Also, I'll hold more than my opponent. So I score 4 for holding 1. More than my opponent is an additional, I think it's 2, an additional 2. So that's 6. Then I'm going to score 4 more for that. So that's going to make 10, which is pretty nice. Then battle round 2 is going to happen, and then the other player will be the underdog probably. Then they'll pick either green or red, and then it'll rotate around the board. Okay. And then if they pick red, battle round 3 it'll become purple, and battle round 4 it'll become green, and then it will move through. Okay, simple. And then you score more points. The reason I said this is a win more, because if I'm already holding more objectives than you, I'm probably holding the primary and I'm holding the secondary, which means I'm scoring more points. So it's like, if I'm doing well on the objective, I'm doing even better on the objective. And seeing as everything is just clumped in the middle, everything just fights in the middle, right? Now, that's really okay if you and your friend want to like kind of have fun doing something that's like cool, or you want to play at the club and it's kind of an interesting mechanic. But I think what you'll end up finding, and I could be wrong on this, but like I'm pretty certain, what you end up finding is it'll just be like the guys that could just jump on objectives early and just stand there. So you're going to score big and score early, and then the points are going to just race away. There's also not a lot of terrain on the board, so some of the battle tactics are a little bit more interesting. There is a nice spread of deployment zone, though, which I quite like, and I'm actually pretty keen on. So for me, this one just isn't it. It's complicated. You need to read it a bunch of times. You need to reference it. There's a lot of tracking to see which objective is which. Let's say it's a hot sunny day and you've been playing 4 rounds of Warhammer anyway, and this is round 5. And then you're like, oh, I thought that one was the primary. No, this one was the primary. It's a load more extra work. So for me, I don't like this one. I'm going to put this into the bad section. I'm not saying don't play it. I think it's playable. Absolutely. I don't think Noxious Nexus and the other one are playable. This one is playable. I just don't think it's going to be as fun. It doesn't have a lot of tactical opportunity. Like, it sounds like it does. It's like, oh, it moves around. I'll jump between objectives. It's like, well, I can't. There'll probably be something there. So yeah, this one for me goes in bad. Our next mission is the Surge of Slaughter. So there are 5 objectives on the board, and score 5 victory points if you control at least 1 objective. Lovely. 3 for a pair of objectives, so that would be a matching pair. And then 2 if you control more than your opponent. And then the underdog twist is very simple. Defense of the realm, pick a pair of objectives to be the targets. For the rest of the battle round, add 1 to the rend characteristic of our friendly units, melee weapons, while they're contesting either of the target's objectives. So the really big thing here is holding a pair is worth 3, and controlling more is worth 2. And that's pretty fun if we go look at the map properly. So we start with holding green, and our opponent starts with holding green. So the only pair available easily is holding reds. You go early, grab them, score 3 extra points. That's a nice start. You'll also score more points. It does feel like many of these maps have been set up that if you do go first, you're going to score more than your opponent. Now, sure, that makes them the underdog, but it doesn't make them the underdog so bad that they can do a double and they're going to be able to score, like, they're going to not have the bad effects happen to them, which is you can't score your battle tactic. But the fun element of this is scoring the pairs of objectives. So holding both greens is quite fun, especially if you're playing with a teleporting army or something really fast. The idea of like jumping onto their green objective, so you have to constantly be protecting yours, maybe looking for an opportunity to take theirs off them. That's fun. I really enjoy that. Reds, knowing that both of us are going for reds is cool because we want the pairs for the additional points. That means maybe that leaves blue open in the middle. And do I just want to put a cheeky unit on blue? Do they push through blue immediately to try and pin me into green? And does that mean then I can teleport or move units around the side to go and grab reds? So there's a lot of options, a lot of levers that both players can pull. There's a nice arrangement of terrain as well. Quite a few forests. There's a couple of pieces of obstacles in the middle, which is cool, and some places of power. And those places of power are only going to be able to make the greens obscuring. So reds are never going to be obscuring. So finally, you might be able to do some missile weapons or stuff to that as well. It's also nice and spread out, which is good. So Gargants aren't going to have as much of a fun time as they normally would. So I really like this. I think this is really, really fun. And I'm going to put this straight up into good. I think this is excellent. Our next mission is Creeping Corruption. Now, this has got 6 objectives. And 5 points if you control at least 1 objective. Nice. 3 victory points if you control 2 or more. Fine. And 2 victory points if you control more than your opponent. Seeing as both the players are going to deploy onto 3 objectives each, then you're immediately going to get 8 points. You don't even move, and really got to start working out how you're going to get the extra 2 points. But 8 points is still fine. Really, really fine. Okay, so if we look at the twist that you get, pulsing life energies. Once per battle round, at the start of the battle round, you pick an objective you control and 1 other objective, whether you control it or not. You draw a line between the centers of these objectives, then choose a propagation or corruption. You apply the appropriate effect. Add 1 to the casting rolls, chanting rolls, and banishment rolls for each unit crossed by the line, and then inflict D3 mortal damage on each unit crossed by the line. Okay, let's go look at the map in a little bit more detail. So I need to control an objective I have. So that's one of these, if I'm the underdog, and then I draw it over there. Boom. Everything over that line, where probably nothing is because it needs to be near objectives, will take D3 mortals. It's not really that big a deal. I really don't think it. If I rush my opponent's objective, grab an objective they have, and then draw a line, then maybe I'll hit a bunch of stuff. But also, how am I the underdog in that situation able to do that? Being able to give pluses to cast to my own dudes could be pretty cool. But seeing as obscuring is affecting the game so aggressively in this GHB, is my casting actually going to be as worthwhile as it previously was? Maybe not. And it's only +1 to cast. This feels like a really standard cookie cutter playstyle, although it's another series of missions that are objectives that are spread out, which does seem to be a preference of mine personally. So I'm going to look at the missions at the end and see if I've accidentally made too many spread out missions. The reason I do like spread out missions, though, is castle builds, armies that just want to like alpha pin you in a certain section of the board, and also like Gargants have more of a problem. They struggle a little bit because they need to be in more places at once. But it does also benefit armies that are fast. It also benefits armies that can teleport. So it's not necessarily super good for your slow-moving armies. But, spoiler, there's no real good missions that are good for slow-moving armies. So it's something to be really conscious of. There's not really much I can say about that. There is the twist that we talked about. And so for me, Creeping Corruption feels really good as well. Feels up here. And this is starting to look really healthy and nice. Like we've got 6 in the very playable. Even bad, I say you can play them. 2 more to go. Let's have a look, shall we? Our next battle plan is Linked Ley Lines. Linked Ley Lines is a super interesting mission in that it's really simple. All right, so there are 5 objectives. Take a moment to look at it on Age of Index here. 5 objectives with 2 reds, 2 greens, and a blue in the middle. And then we've got quite a lot of places of power, so a lot of opportunity to obscure those pieces of terrain. But apart from that, there isn't a lot of terrain. So if we're talking about battle tactics, this one could be quite interesting. There's a lot of space to put your own terrain. The deployment zones are nice and wide, so you've got a lot of opportunity to really spread out, which is good. But this is a classic fight in the middle or fight around the middle mission. And many of the missions that I definitely think are good are more spread out. But I think ultimately, keeping the game honest, having a mission that's in your kind of like TO mission deck or is one of those missions that you kind of swap in between you and your friends, this is a fun one for just gunning it all in the middle and having a fun time. So it's definitely going to rate okay with me. Now, there's a fun additional mechanic to this in the greens and the reds and how we score. So if we take a look at the scoring, you score 3 victory points if you control 1 objective, which is fine. Then 3 victory points if you control 2 or more. This is where definitely fighting in the middle, fighting on those objectives is going to be pretty key. And then 2 victory points if you control any pairs of objectives. So this does really kind of change the shape of the game, because in order to control more, you maybe would want, sorry, not to control more, 3 victory points to control, 2 or more objectives. So 3 victory points for those. You're probably going to want to grab the middle and then maybe grab a side. But that means you're not going to get the bonus points for getting the pairs, which is getting both reds or getting both greens. So that's quite hard to score the maximum amount of points from this particular battle plan. And so maybe you just kind of leave one of the flanks. You just decide you're going to commit everything to kind of the center and right, or everything on the center and left. is a kind of a nice idea. However, the twist does change up this a little bit, and currently the twist itself needs an FAQ. So while you're the underdog, your army has the rooted in the realm and the full of life. This is not the twist, sorry. I don't mean the twist. I apologize. We've been deep diving this a long time. What I meant is the additional way that you score points, a linked ley line, is formed across the battlefield, long edge to long edge or short edge to short edge, while one player controls the objectives on that line. You score 2 victory points if you control all the objectives on a linked ley line. So what I think Games Workshop meant was, if we take a look at this, if you draw a line all the way across the board from across greens and across blue, boom. Yeah, what they meant is if you control everything on there, you get an additional 2 points. That would also be good because you'd also be holding 2 or more objectives, which means as well as holding 1 and holding 2 or more, you're now scoring a ton of different points. But doing that, really positive. Unfortunately, Games Workshop didn't write this very well. And currently, you can score this by just holding 1 and drawing a line across it and gaining 2 extra points because you could hold all objectives along the line, short edge to short edge. Similarly, you could do the same, obviously, with green and go like long ways down here, same thing. So it just needs an FAQ. If you're playing with your friends, I think that you need to be able to, you need to just rule that as that's the way it works, okay? Super simple. With the exception of that, the twist is not impactful at all. And so much so that I don't even care about it. It's like +1 rend against manifestations, and manifestations have strike first if you're the underdog. So it really doesn't benefit underdog units at all or anything. So for me, this one is fine. And I would say even close to medium, but considering a lot of the other missions that we have chosen are fighting around, is a much wider mission set, the objectives are more spread out, then I would say that this one can also go in good as well. And now it's starting to look really healthy as a GHB, I gotta say. We've now got straight up 5 up there, and maybe even more healthy than the last GHB, because the ones that we do have at the top are also more spread out. So I think that's really healthy. Last one to go. Our last mission is Grasp of Thorns. Now, this has got 4 objectives, and if you score 5 victory points if you control at least 1 objective, 3 victory points if you control 2 or more objectives, and you score 2 victory points if you control more objectives than your opponent. So 3 victory points for 2 or more, 2 for more. That's the thing to remember. We go and have a look at it on the board. We can see our deployments are nice and wide. We love that. The objectives, we've got 2 in our deployment zone, so we're going to immediately just score 8 points just for holding the objectives. Our opponent's going to score 8 points as well. Super simple. So really, we're fighting over having more objectives than our opponent, and the board is pretty spread out. There's no objective in the middle. We are either on one side or the other. This is tough for castle armies or armies that need stuff within range and buffs. You can be really clever with deployment and outdrop your opponent and make it so that you've got all your power pieces on one side. They maybe don't. A lot of space for being able to put your terrain down as well, which is cool. So that's nice. There isn't a lot of obscuring terrain. There's only the 2 pieces, but there is 4 places of power, which are obscuring themselves, and you're going to be able to use those to make the objectives obscuring. So again, shooting armies having a terrible time. Lots of space in no man's land as well, which is cool. And this is just a really simple, it's kind of interesting place to end. Really simple mission where the strategies are probably just rush a flank, hold that, or maybe but then one of your flanks might be a little bit weaker. So there's some real play around here. And there's also kind of play around an underdog mechanic. The underdog mechanic is called Carnivorous Flora. You roll a dice for each unit contesting that objective. On a 3+, every mod on that unit is within the control zone of the objective is entangled for the rest of the battle round. Entangled models must stay within the control zone of the grasping objective for the rest of the battle round, while a unit has entangled models cannot be removed from the battlefield by any ability that would allow it to be set up anywhere else on the battlefield. So this is good because this is a great anti-teleport mechanic locked into a 3-up dice roll. If you're losing, I really like this as a mission in the mission deck because, as we've talked about, several of the good missions, I think, are quite wide with quite spaced out objectives. This means teleporting units that can be lifted off the board and put back on, which is a strong mechanic, especially for Stormcast, the most popular army in the game. It means you shut that down a little bit, which is really positive. So that's not bad. However, It's on a 3-up, so it's not that reliable. But even putting it in a mission pack might mean that you are reducing down how effective teleporting is. So right now, for kind of what we're doing, I'm going to put this in as medium. However, this could actually go into the God tier if what it does is it changes the meta of the game. Now, there's obviously also counters to this, as has been pointed out, like don't deploy your important units on objectives, but you know, you might need to because you might need to score points. So that is how our mission pack looks. And I think it looks really healthy, more trending towards good than not, like very positive. Only 2 out of the mission deck that I personally think I wouldn't myself want to play. I also wouldn't want to force a friend to play at a club, and I wouldn't want to play at an event, especially with timekeeping probably being an issue. However, that doesn't mean people aren't going to pick them and use them. So that's what it is. Some of the bad ones, I think, is just really to do with the fact that certain armies and certain playstyles might work really well in Age of Sigmar. And also, thanks to Rob and everything we do at the Age of Sigmar Stat Center, we're going to be able to look at like missions and what gets picked a lot and what people play. And also, leave your comments if you are finding this video a month after it's come out, or if you just started watching it, leave a comment below and kind of give me your experience of how these missions play as well, because I think that's going to be super interesting. Now, these need also to be paired with how battle tactics work, which we're going to cover in an additional video in the future, which will be fun. And I've really enjoyed this deep dive of looking at this because this gives me a good idea of all the missions I want to play over the next couple of weeks as I play and start to learn the game really, really intensely. And also, hopefully it's useful to you, and it's going to help me write mission packs early doors, because I've already got my 5 missions at the top there, which is nice, with, I think, 3 missions to dip into. And maybe if I'm feeling crazy, I can look at the life routes and life cycle. But of course, if you don't agree and you've got different feelings or opinions, or your army works in a different way and you want to talk about it, please do leave a comment, because I'd be interested. I've really enjoyed making this video over the past like 4.5 hours while I've been live streaming on Twitch. So let me know what you think. You can help support me make content like this by joining my Patreon and supporting me there. That's the easiest way to help support all the content I make. I'm going to try and make as many deep dives and really weird, unnecessarily, aggressively intense reviews of content and stuff in the future. Also, I think one of the things that would be really fun is to work out which of these battle plans is the most fun to play. But I think that really comes down to your personal preference. Some people are going to love the Noxious Nexus where everything fights. And some people are going to love the Pass of the Fae where everything teleports. So I can't really create a tier list for fun because that's really based on what you choose, not what I choose. Like, that's your interpretation of it. So anyway, I'm going to do more content, hopefully as many deep dives as possible. Let me know what you want me to make. Thanks for watching my video. I'll see you soon. Bye.